I'm really loving this book lately. It's the Philokolia, Prayer of the Heart, writings from the Philokolia. And last night I was reading something that I thought was very inspirational to all who are seeking the kingdom of heaven. As when the soul leaves, the body becomes dead and stinking, so the soul not urging itself to prayer is dead, damned, and fetid. The great prophet Daniel, who chose death rather than being without prayer for a single moment, teaches us that we should regard being deprived of prayer as worse than any death. St. John Chrysostom too speaks well on this. Every man, he says, when praying, converses with God. Each of us understands how great a thing it is, being man, to converse with God. But I doubt if anyone can express this honor in words, for it is higher even than the station of angels. And prayer is a doing common to both angels and men, and no wall divides the two kinds of being in this doing. Prayer separates you from those who lack the word and unites you with the angels. A man who strives all his life to practice praying and serving God speedily becomes akin to angels in life, honor, estate, wisdom, and understanding. Again, when the devil sees a soul protected by virtue, he dares not to come near it, fearing the strength and power given to it by prayer, which feeds the soul more richly than food feeds the body. And prayers are the nerves of the soul. By nerves, the body is kept in order, lives, moves, and remains stable. But when the nerves are cut, the whole harmony of the body is destroyed. In the same way, souls are kept in order by holy prayers, acquire stability, and move smoothly and easily in the way of righteousness. If you deprive yourself of prayer, it is like taking a fish out of water, for as water means life to a fish, so prayer, life to you. As a fish through water, so the soul can rise through the air to heaven and stand in the presence of God. Again, prayer and praying make men temples of God. As gold, precious stones, and marble adorn the palaces of kings, so do prayers adorn the temple of Christ, the souls of believers. What greater praise can there be for prayer than that it makes us temples of God, and that He whom the heavens cannot contain yet enters into the living soul in prayers? And the power of holy prayers can be seen from how Paul, who traversed the whole universe as on wings, lived in prisons, endured floggings, and was put in chains, lived among blood and suffering, cast out demons, raised the dead, cured diseases, yet put his trust in none of these in building the salvation of men, but kept his soul safe by prayers. When he had performed miracles and raised the dead, hastened to prayer as to the supreme doing, crowning all endeavor, for it is prayer that bestows the power of raising the dead and of all else, for prayers have the same power in the lives of saints as water in the lives of trees. Again, prayer is the cause of salvation, the source of immortality, the indestructible wall of the church, the unassailable fortress which terrifies the demons and protects us in the work of righteousness. And as a queen entering a town is attended by all kinds of riches, so prayer entering a soul brings every virtue in its train. And prayer is the soul. Prayer in the soul is as the foundation to a house, setting it in the soul as root and foundation. We must zealously build thereon chastity, care of the poor, and the fulfillment of all the laws of Christ. And again, zealous prayer is the light of mind and soul, constant, indistinguishable light. Therefore, during prayer, our bitter enemy floods our mind and drenches our soul with a measureless filth of thoughts and collects together quantities of things which had never entered our heads. And prayer is a great weapon, a great protection. The theologian also says it is more essential to remember God than to breathe. And you must think of God more often than you breathe. And St. Isaac says, you cannot approach God without constant prayer. And placing some other care in the mind after the work of prayer brings dispersal of thoughts. And every prayer which does not tire the body and make the heart contrite is like an abortive child, for such a prayer is without soul. And St. John the Latter says, in quality prayer is communion, coexistence, merging into one being, a union of man with God. In action, it is what the world stands by reconciliation with God, the mother of tears, and again their daughter, propitiation for sin, a bridge over temptations, a wall against sorrows, the cessation of warfare, the doing of angels, the food of all incorporeal spirits, the future bliss, a doing without end or limit, the source of virtues, the seeker and finder of gifts, invisible achievement, food of the soul, light of the mind, the sword cutting off despair, the evidence of hope, the loosing of the bonds of sorrow, the riches of monks, the treasure of hesychasts, the gradual decrease of anger to naught, the mirror of achievement, the measure of a man's degree, the evidence of a spiritual state, the foreteller of the future, the sign of glorification. For a man who truly prays, prayer is the torture chamber, the court of justice, and the throne of the Lord, even before the throne of the future. And prayer is estrangement from the world, both visible and invisible. And St. Nilus says, if you wish to achieve prayer, renounce all to inherit all. And prayer is ascent of the mind to God. Again, prayer is converse of the mind, is converse of the mind with God. And bread is food for the body, virtue for the soul. Prayer is spiritual food for the mind. So think thus of prayer as of food of the soul. Now it is timely to speak briefly, as far as is in our power, of physical food, its measure, quality, and quantity. I hope you enjoyed this reading from the writings of the Philokolia on prayer of the heart. This book was gifted to me by a dear Facebook friend and brother in Christ.